Welcome everyone to the last part of the workflow series with Sharon Burton. My name is Vincent Donadio, Interactive Media Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory. If you follow or interact with us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, or visit our website, I'm the guy on the other side of the tube, so come say hi. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL services help to refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, today and in the future. This morning or afternoon, we have Sharon Burton, Content Strategist, with us. She's going to tell us a little bit about who she is and what she does, and then she's going to jump right into Context Workflow Part 3, Next Steps. Be sure to spread the buzz on Twitter using the hashtag #WorkflowFix. Sharon, take it away.
So, Vincent, I assume that I have mouse control today?
Yep.
Let me find out. Not as such, no. Oh, wait, yes. Okay. Excellent. Good morning, all. Thank you so much for putting up with us with our little technical hiccup. I'm on the road traveling, and not everything is as smooth as you would, if you were sitting in your own office doing everything. So I appreciate the patience, and I'm hoping that you will get something of value out of this that made the couple-of-minute wait worthwhile. So the last two parts, I don't know if you have been here, but let's pretend you have. In the first part, we talked about what would broken look like. If you were going to be broken, if your workflow is broken, how would you know it was broken? What are some of the concerns that you might have? Last time, part 2, we looked at what is really the solution, which is topic-based authoring and all of the things to consider around topic-based authoring. So now that you've identified that you're broken and you have figured out that you probably need to go with a topic-based authoring content development strategy, now we're going to finally start looking at tools. And we're not going to look concretely or specifically at each tool. This is not a tool feature-by-feature comparison because all the tools have features. We're going to look at what do you need to know when you start evaluating what it is that your issues are and how you might go about solving them, and start to look at tools. So let me double-click this. Not as such there. Vincent, could I get the next slide, please? We're just going to be doing this. So to recap, what are your problems? Things like we reuse content, but our current tools, or we could reuse content, but our current tools don't allow it. Or we do a lot of post-processing, or we're wasting a lot of time reformatting, or we're localizing, or we're going to be adding localization languages, and we can see that our costs are going to skyrocket. Or we've got a lot of people who should be contributing content, but they can't do that simply because we don't have a workflow that's allowing that. Vincent, could I have the next slide, please? Our deadlines are getting more aggressive. This is what I'm seeing a lot of, especially as the economy is now turning around. The deadlines are getting more aggressive, but we can't add headcount. So we've got to start looking at how could we work even smarter than we're working. Your content development process may be slow and hard, and some of that may be workflow, some of that may be tools, some of that may be other things. Perhaps you're adding a team in India or China or one of the other offshore areas, and they need to have access to the content, and now you're having to rethink how this all works because it's all been based on everybody sitting in cubicles next to each other. So maybe that. Maybe you're going to be hiring some more people. Maybe you finally got the head count, but your process, your workflow process, your tools process, your delivery process, all of that just takes forever to learn. Maybe because it's just hard. Or maybe you're looking at the way you do things, you're looking at the next 2 to 5 years, and you're realizing that the way you do things is simply not scalable. You are in a corner that you can't grow from. And so it's time to change now instead of before this all catches on fire and becomes, scary and bad. Vincent? So, if you've got these problems, sit down and make a list. Make a list of what these problems are or whatever your problems are. What are your problems? make a list. Don't worry about getting the list right. Don't worry about, well, we're going to have, the first one's the big one, or don't worry about that. Just sit down and just brainstorm with yourself, with your group, depending on how many people you've got. Just brainstorm. Make a list of the things that are problems. And every time, once you get that list down, then look at it, see, do you have a big problem? Like our workflow is broken. Okay, well, that's kind of a big problem, so maybe you should break that into smaller pieces. And then after you get that all put together, look at it and think, okay, if we were to fix this, what would that look like? So maybe our review process is interminable. So what would that look like? What would fixed be? Well, obviously not interminable, but what's really fixed? Obviously we would like our reviews 2 seconds after we send our content out. Well, that's not realistic. What would be fixed? If you could maybe get out of Word, maybe you are currently exporting everything out to Word, sending the Word documents out to your reviewers, they send it all back to you, and then you have to crawl through Glass to pull it all back in and make those changes. So what would fixed be? Fixed would be is if we don't have to do all these conversions. If we could somehow have everybody do their reviews in the same document. That would be fixed. Okay? So fixed is not, fixed. Just what would be appropriate for your workflow? What is it that you would be willing, what would be your preference for this to be fixed? And then identify the priority. If it's urgent, that means it's a major impact if it's not fixed. For example, maybe it takes you a week of post-processing the files to be able to deliver them into the build to release. And that's huge because you're just simply not getting that week anymore. And there's no way around it. The way you're currently doing things, it's just going to take a week. That's a major impact if it's not fixed. It's costing you literal dollars to not fix that. So let's put that as an urgent. Good would be, we're probably going to go to Epub sometime in the next couple of years. We're going to start publishing out to mobile platforms probably in about 2 years. That it would be good if we fixed that now, if whatever we did would support that when we get there. But 2 years is a long time. We don't need it fixed right this minute. And then bonus to fix are those little things, whether it's in your tool or your workflow or your content development process, whatever it is, those little things that, man, it would be nice to fix. There may not even be a dollar impact on that. It's just, it would be nice to fix. We're really frustrated with this. It's just something that irritates the crud out of us. It would be really nice if we had that fixed. Those bonus to fix things are not drivers, though. You don't go out into the market looking for a solution based on those bonus to fix things. For example, I was working with a company one time, and they were looking at, they decided on they were going to choose one of 2 tools. And they were leaning towards the decision for one of the tools, even though it didn't solve their workflow issues as elegantly. The reason they liked it was because there were fewer clicks when they went to do something. There were fewer mouse clicks, and that's a bonus to fix. That's not an urgent to fix. They were literally counting the number of mouse clicks that they would have to do to publish their output. And they liked one of the tools because they had to do 2 mouse clicks less. I personally think that's kind of silly. And I think that's kind of silly because I think you're focusing on the wrong things entirely. 2 less mouse clicks, well, sure, but the other tools supported the workflow that they said was critical, and it was costing them dollars. I mean, yes, at a certain level, it adds up over the week, and at the end of the week, well, I've had to do 8 extra mouse clicks, which took me an extra 10 seconds, and 10 seconds of my time costs X number of dollars. I mean, yes, you can assign a dollar value to it, but seriously, you're focused on the wrong stuff. As you're looking at your list, also think about, are there any other groups or any other processes that we need to fit in with? Touch points. Places like working with QA, working with our reviewers, working with project management, those places where you either throw something over the wall or something is thrown over the wall at you. You may not be able to easily change the way your reviewers do things. They may love the way they do things, they may not want to change. And that is not an unmanageable situation, but it may mean that you've got to really come up with a business case that goes above their heads, above those touch point heads, and speaks to the solid numbers, the solid dollars that are being wasted because you get back 15 different Word documents, each marked up differently, and then the tech writer spends the next week and a half chasing this all down and trying to make sure they've accounted for all the changes, and then you send this all back out for review, and people, you can assign a dollar figure to that, and then multiply that by every deliverable you've got, and all of a sudden you're talking real dollars. And many times management, when presented with that, will go, it's costing us that much. Well, you guys are going to have to just suck that up and stop dealing in Word. You're just going to have to. You're going to have to move to this new way of doing it simply because it's the smart way to do it. And then think about, where do we need to grow in the next 2, 3, or 5 years? I mentioned Epub. Epub, I was just at the Intelligent Content Conference last week, and everybody is interested in mobile devices. Epub is the format for ebook readers, and it's concretely a format, and it's also being used as a generic format, and so if you are looking at this and you're going, we're going to need to start supporting mobile devices in 2 years. We need to think about that when we start looking at solutions that are appropriate for us, because we don't want to lock ourselves into something that isn't going to take us there. For example, locking yourself into, let's pick on Word, shall we? It's so easy. Locking yourself into a Word solution, it's not necessarily likely in 2 years that Word is going to be supporting Epub. I mean, it might, you never know, but you don't really know. And since you don't really know, then you want to go with something that's actually, going to kind of, sort of, do that. So let me see if I can get another slide. Not so much, Vince, please. So now that you've got your list, you've identified the urgency, you've identified the touch points, you've thought about where are you going in the next 2, 3, and 5 years. And by the way, don't worry about that 5 years being like really concrete. 5 years is kind of like the dream. If you know that your company has a mandate to become the world domination company in 5 years, and just based on that you're going to have to start localizing in 14 different languages by 5 years from now, that's good to know. But if you don't really know where the company's going in 5 years, that's okay. Don't panic. 5 years, especially in the high-tech world, 5 years is like, what, 4 generations away? That's a long time. So now that you've got that list, you've got it all put together, link your problems to the costs that are avoided, reduced, or money added to your company. These are the reasons, and these are the only reasons, why a company is going to spend money on you. And these are the only reasons why your company is going to agree there's a problem. If you can't put a dollar value on the urgent stuff, you need to go and think about this again. This is why the number of clicks isn't a business issue. 2 extra clicks that you're going to do 5 times a week. It's like 10 seconds. Seriously? 10 seconds of your time? No. The urgent stuff is the stuff that should be costing your company money. By money, I mean money you're spending that you shouldn't. You're paying a writer to spend 10 days chasing down edits on 15 different versions of the same document, amalgamating them all, finding out what, where everybody disagrees, and sending. That's costing an enormous amount of money. And there are ways to fix that. Those kinds of things, places where it's costing you money. Places where you can reduce money. Maybe instead of paying that writer for 10 days, maybe you can come up with a better workflow that the writer only needs to spend 3 days making those changes. So that's 7 days that we have now stopped paying the writer to do that, and the writer could be doing other things that we want them to do. And then there is the whole money added, where what you are doing will actually allow your company to make money out of that. So for example, The time that you get back by improving your workflow, improving your tools, all of that, may give you time to, for example, create training materials. And those training materials now may let your company start doing a training program where customers will actually pay money to come and do those training materials. So you're actually, because you've spent some money, you have avoided or reduced costs sufficiently that now you actually have a way to make money for your company. So if you can't, if your problem is just simply, well, I hate work, I want something else, you're never going to get what you want. You're going to sound like a whiny teenager, and your company is not going to take you seriously. So you have to put this in terms that your company can understand. You have to make a business case where you show X is costing us Y. We can reduce X by this much % by doing the following. Okay? All right, Vincent, next please. Notice that we haven't talked about any tools yet. I haven't said, and so now you need to run right out and start looking at tools because we don't care about tools yet. We don't. We will, but we don't yet. We care about what our problems are. What is hurting us? Why is it hurting us? What does hurting cost us? Or what is it preventing us from making? We could all be in agreement that what we need is a training program that customers pay us money to come and do the training, or we go to them and do the training. It doesn't matter where it happens. But we can't do that because we simply cannot get enough time because we are so broken. We are so messed up that we are spending so much time doing this messed up stuff that there is no time to do these training materials, like none. And if we could get that time back, we could do these training materials. So that's preventing us from making money. And we've thought about what would not hurting look like for us. So that detail list is going to help us identify what kinds of things we need to start thinking about when we move and start looking at the different tools out there. Vincent, could I get another slide, please? So we've identified what's broken and why. We have come up with a list of things specifically and concretely for us that are broken, why they're broken, what it's costing us, etc. Now we're ready for the now what part. Vincent? Okay. Now we can start thinking about tools. But we can't start thinking about tools until we have identified what our issues are and what we want to solve and what it's costing us. The temptation so often is, well, what tools do I need? Tell me what the best tool is. I see this posted on Tech Whirler all the time and it just cracks me up. Somebody will post, tell me what the best tool is for authoring technical content in. And everybody responds with, it depends. Because it does. It depends on all that stuff that I just talked about. So the temptation is to start by identifying the tool you want to use and then kind of mushing it around and making it fit. That's the wrong way to go about this. You're not going to be happy with this. You need to identify what your needs are, then you can start looking at tools. So don't start by thinking about feature sets. Think about solutions to your problem. So there are, and this is my kind of general organization. I don't want you to run right out and think this is, like some industry standard. I was trying to think of ways to identify the kind of levels of product. So we have the shrink wrap stuff. This is stuff that typically you can download a trial of. You could buy a box, you can't like go to Best Buy and buy it because we're in a specific, a real specialty tools world, but it's more shrink wrap. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the more shrink wrap products. They may perfectly meet all of your needs. They are probably not scalable in that you probably cannot get larger than 5 to 8 people all working together with those tools, and maybe not even that many depending on the tool. But they're probably not scalable, which might be perfectly fine if nowhere on your list does scale, we're going to add 15 more people appear. If that's not a problem you've got, then this may be perfectly fine. The larger group products are the ones that give you room to grow. You may be able to download a demo of this, but probably won't. You probably won't. And these are for groups that are larger than usually about 8 to 10 people. That say 8 to 20, 8 to 25, 20 25 maybe pushing the edge of it, but that kind of thing, where that's probably going to be solving the problems that a group that large has. And then there's the enterprise level. And the enterprise level those are the tools that are probably appropriate if you realize suddenly, not suddenly as you do your evaluation, that the problem may be bigger than you first thought. It may be as you're putting together your list and looking at all of the reasons why you were broken and all of that, it may occur to you that marketing has the same problems, that training has the same problems, that pre-sales has the same problems. And now all of a sudden you're dealing with 40 or 50 or 60 people, all of whom are trying to solve the same problems. And now you're looking at an enterprise thing. It's a completely different animal than we would be using in TechCom. So, yeah, you definitely, this is why I want you to do that analysis, looking at those touch points, all of that, before you start deciding that, well, Adobe FrameMaker is the solution. Well, it may be the solution, but that may not be your problem. It's a nice solution, but it may not be your problem that it's solving. And then don't forget, think about that 2, 3, and 5-year plan. TechCom people especially, we have a habit of putting our head down and looking at today, but you want to think about that strategic. So right now, it may be that a shrink wrap is going to solve your problem, but you're looking at that 2-year plan. You're looking at the 2-year roadmap for your company. You're looking at what it's going to take to do that 2-year roadmap, and you're realizing, you know what, shrink wrap may not be the right solution for us. We may want to bite the bullet and go with a larger group product to give us that room to grow. It's perfectly fine for the group as it is right now, the size that we are right now, and we've got some room to kind of stretch our wings and grow. So, Vince, if you could please. Okay, a note about feature sets. And remember, I've worked for 2 vendors, and I'm here to tell you, features are really nice, and I'm really excited that everybody has some. And if they don't have some, they should run right out and get some features. Maybe more features. Feature. Everybody, all the vendors say that their feature set is the best. It is the best. And you know it's the best because they all have a web page where their features are listed down the down the left, and across the top there's their products and compared to other products. And all of their features all have a green checkbox, and all of their competitors' features don't have a green checkbox. Clearly, their vendors, their tool set is their feature set is the best, right? I really, really, really hate those. I think those are the most meaningless things ever, and every CEO loves those tables. They feel that that's doing something. You know, and I just shrug and I go, right, our customers would expect that we have some features. But you see, nobody's buying our products because they're desperate for a feature. They're trying to solve a problem. You don't buy a product because it supports tables. You buy a product because you need tables in your documentation, and oh look, this product lets me do that. You see the difference? I have a problem. I need tables in my documentation. I'm going to choose a product that has that. I'm not, yeah, you need a solution to your problems, and the solutions to your problems are not features. Recently, I was at a conference, and I was at a presentation that had been billed as a 5-vendor shootout. And I thought, oh, this is fantastic. You know, I'm going to get to watch 5 vendors take some document set that they all have to work with, and then they're going to solve some common workflow thing. And they're all going to show us how they solve that. That would be fantastic, because then I can see, you know, in real time, I can see how each one of these products solves this common workflow problem that I'm sure my customers have. My clients probably have either this workflow or some, you know, seriously close iteration of this one. It turned out that wasn't it, but it would have been fantastic. But something for you to understand, if you are looking at new tools, and here's a way to think about this. If it's occurred to you, we need a different tool, by definition, your organization is hurt or broken or dysfunctional in some way. And that, you need to solve that. The tools are secondary, almost. We've all worked at a place where they decided that we need to get SharePoint or whatever it is. We need to get that. Everybody needs to use that. And that will help us. And so they get it, they install it, and they don't give anybody any instruction on it. They don't make the business case to you why you would want to use it. And at the end of the first year, everything is still a mess. It's just all a mess now in SharePoint. You see, the problem was disorganization. The problem wasn't we don't have SharePoint. Okay, Vincent, next. I feel like I'm beating that horse now. Okay, so product size. If you're looking at the shrink wrap, download a trial, work with your content. Work through your issues list to see how well this shrink wrap is solving those issues. Okay? And don't just play with their demo set. I'm here to tell you, having worked for 2 vendors, those demo sets that ship are carefully groomed and combed to work well with that product. So it should not surprise you in the slightest that the sample data that they make available to you in those products works brilliantly. Why, look, this never blows up or anything. Right. Yeah, we were real careful about that. So use your content. All of these shrink wrap tools let you somehow bring your content in, and you need to do that. Because your content, even though everybody has the same problems, your content's going to have its own little fiddly things. Everybody's content has its own little fiddly things. And yours is going to have little fiddly things. And you need to make sure that, number one, you can get your content in, and number two, that once your content is in, the problems you're trying to solve with your content are solvable. With a larger group, there may be a trial, but there may not be. So don't panic if there isn't, because the larger group stuff often needs a custom installation, and so there is no real trial for you to install. You're probably going to need to work with a salesperson. And I realize working with salespeople is not our happy place usually, because we feel like they're trying to sell us really everything. You know, well, it's a lovely day outside, and then they try and sell us a lovely day. You know, no, I was just making chit-chat that it's a lovely day. I don't want to buy more lovely days. I was just making chit-chat. No. But working with salespeople can actually be a really good thing, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a couple more slides. The enterprise level, there is not going to be a trial to play with. It is definitely a custom install. It has definitely got to be configured for your situation to meet your needs. There's not going to be a trial. And I can really guarantee you, you're going to need to work with a salesperson. So 2 out of 3 of our scenarios, you're going to have to work with a salesperson. So how does that work? Vincent, could I have the next slide, please? All right. Regardless of the size of the tool, whether it's enterprise or shrink wrap, each end of our spectrum, you should be able to somehow get your data in and start working through your list. Never, ever, 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 ever accept the generic demo as proof of concept for what you need the thing to do. Remember I said that carefully groomed, very stable data set that, you know, that sample? Right. That's all carefully groomed. It's all, you can accept it as, okay, it seems to do that which I need it to do, but don't accept it as proof that it's going to do what you need to do perfectly. Make sure you get your content in the product. Now, if the company won't let you get your content, and I don't mean all of your content. I don't mean, you know, you need to put your entire library of content in. No, you should be able to take a representative book, and book here being, you know, a euphemism for whatever your deliverable thing would be. But if you can't get at least one book, insert your deliverable of choice here, into the product to work with it, if the company won't let you do that, it's the wrong vendor, and just walk away. Just walk away. They should be invested in you getting your content into the tool and seeing how your content works with the tool. Now, they may need to hold your hand a lot because this may do stuff that you've never thought of, especially at the enterprise level. It may do stuff that you've never thought of doing, and you just go, really? I would never have thought of that. So you may need to work with your salesperson, with your pre-sales people, but they've got to let you get your content in, because otherwise it's all just smoke and mirrors. And you should not be investing money in smoke and mirrors. Vincent, may I have the next slide, please? Okay. Something for you guys to really think about. When you are selecting new tools, once you've identified your pain points, identified what you need to have to make your stuff all go better, and you start working with the vendors, I know that there is, in our industry, whenever you say, okay, well, I've got to start working with a salesperson, everybody goes, oh my God, a salesperson. This is going to be horrible. Well, no. No. When you start working with a salesperson, I mean, it can be horrible. And if it is horrible, you're working with the wrong salesperson. If the product you're looking at seems to be very interesting for you, that's cool. Go with that. But understand that if you're dealing with a salesperson from that vendor and that salesperson doesn't seem to be understanding what it is that you're trying to do, ask to work with another salesperson. All of the vendors will have another salesperson and should be willing to let you swap out. They understand that personalities sometimes don't mesh, that not everybody gets along with everybody else. Nobody's bad, nobody's wrong. It's just your personality doesn't match their personality. Ask for a different salesperson. I want you to think of it as dating. And this is part of my list of other things to consider. What's it going to take to get people up and trained? Is it going to be a 6-month training process? Is it going to be a 2-month training? You've got to think about that, especially when you start putting together the plan for how we're going to do this. What's it going to take to get people up and trained? So maybe you train your top 1 or 2 people. Maybe you've got a couple of people who are really, really geeky, technical. They love playing this stuff. So train those 2. And then have them be the experts who do the in-house training for everybody else. They're the go-to people. So they do the training, they do the advanced training, and then they come back and they're the internal support for the rest of the staff while they're coming up to speed. If you decide to do that, and that can work really well, make sure that you assign that responsibility as part of the job description. Don't just, dump it on them as something to do, because this can take a great deal of time, at least initially. And if people have the expectation that they will still be delivering the content they're supposed to be delivering while they're supporting 5 other people learning this new product, that's an unreasonable expectation. And you need to align those expectations better so that people understand that. Also, make sure that you're planning for adding more people. So if you're going to choose a tool and there are only 4 people on the face of the earth who use it, but it's still the best solution for you, make sure that you understand when you bring in more people, you're going to have to train them. It may be that this tool that only 4 people in the world uses does exactly everything you need it to do. It solves every problem from now all the way out to a 5-year. This is the right one for us. We accept that there are only 4 people who use it, and we'll have to train anybody that we bring in. We'll have to put them through a training program, and that's fine. And then something I like to do when I'm running a docs group is I like to have brown bags. So like maybe every other week, have a brown bag lunch, and one person does a presentation of something cool they've discovered, or an interesting way they've solved X, or a problem they don't know how to solve, and put it out to the group. And I like doing that a lot. I especially like doing it with my more junior people, because it gives my junior staff a chance to present, which I think everybody needs experience doing, especially the junior people. It gives, if the junior person is presenting a solution for something, it gives them a chance to be expert, which if you're a junior person doesn't happen that often. So that's kind of a nice feeling. That makes them feel good. So I like brown bags a lot. Your mileage may vary. Your group may be such that brown bags are difficult or not practical. But if you can possibly do it, this is a great way to increase everybody's knowledge, all of the staff knowledge, and kind of just, start developing rapport and expertise in the products. Vincent, may I have the next slide, please? Okay. Now, back to that whole thing I talked about the vendor. You are dating at this point. I want you to think of it as dating. So during the evaluation process, was support available to you? Did the vendor help you get your content in? Did they respond when you had issues or questions about how to do things? Again, you're working off your list. You know what your list is. Was support available to you? When you got a hold of support or your salesperson, did they seem to want to help? Or did it seem as though you were interrupting them, maybe preventing them from doing their more important stuff, like eating a donut or something? If they don't seem to want to help while you're dating, was the company responsive. If you raised your hand and said, okay, look, you don't do Epub yet, but we need to do Epub soon. We've got it on our 2-year plan. Tell me what your roadmap is. If they kind of waved their hands and said, well, there's a roadmap, and we've got one, and roadmaps are good. I used a roadmap once to get unlost. I was lost once, and I used a roadmap, and I got unlost, and then I had a donut. If that's what you're getting, that's not being responsive to your needs. If you call your salesperson and say, I've got a thing I need to chat with you about, and it takes them 4 days to get back to you, that's not so responsive to your needs. Now, clearly, your expectation shouldn't be that they're sitting right there next to the phone all day long just hoping you'll call, rocking back and forth. Maybe they'll call now. Maybe they'll call now. No, that's an unreasonable expectation. But, something to let you know that they've gotten your email or they've gotten your phone call. They may not be able to coordinate with you today, but they're at least letting you know that they have seen that you've made a request to talk to them, and they're trying to schedule you for tomorrow or the day after. There's some attempt to be responsive. When you get support, help, etc., are you getting answers you can understand? Or do you get this vague feeling that they're kind of waving their hands in the air and muttering? If they're kind of waving their hands in the air and muttering and seem to sidestep any attempt on your part to get them concrete, or worse, don't seem to ever understand your questions, this may not be the right company for you. This may not be the right vendor, because it just may. You're dating. What do you think? Why would you think that it's going to get better after you've given them the money? You're dating them now. They want your money. They're trying to entice you to give them money. This is the part, this is that, breathlessly in love, I can't believe how, wonderful you are, stare at you over the dinner table, that's this. And if they're not meeting your needs now, what on earth makes you think they're going to meet your needs once you guys get married? So, can the company support you during a transition? Do they have a professional services team of some sort that can help you during your transition, getting your content in, etc.? Maybe they help train you, whatever it is. And something we don't think about a lot, but are there specialists in the public market? Are there people who maybe, and this sounds like a shameless plug, I just realized that's not intended, somebody like me who can walk in and help you get your content into the new product, who can help you put together the best practices for your workflow with this new tool, that kind of thing. Now, why is that important? Because sometimes vendors charge a great deal of money for that phase. And it could be that you can afford the product, but the budget for that phase is just costing an arm and a leg. If there are specialists out there on the market, we are often less. Sometimes not. I'm not going to tell you we always are, because that would be a lie. But sometimes we are less. Sometimes we are much less, if for no other reason than we tend to be smaller and we are slightly hungrier. And so we probably cost less than having the vendor help you. So it can also be nice 6 months down the line when you realize, okay, we've got this product figured out. We'd like to start doing some stuff we haven't done yet. We don't want to bring the vendor back in, and even if we did, it's really not something they do. Let's bring in an outside consultant and have them just solve this little thing for us right there. And all of this is very important, because if your management, if you've sat down with your management and agreed it's going to take you 6 months to get through this process, and then you will be delivering content faster, better, cheaper, more hip, whatever it is you've promised, and in fact it takes a year to get there, that looks bad. You need to meet your internal business goals when you said you would meet them, or you're going to lose credibility internally. And if the vendor is not being all of the stuff that you need them to be, and they are a big part of why you are not hitting your milestones, that's not a happy place. That's the kind of place where you want to find a vendor representative, perhaps in a dark alley, and you want to just give them paper cuts and then pour lemon on them and laugh maniacally. This is not a happy place. So you're dating, and you definitely want to pay attention to that dating. Vincent, could I have the next slide, please? Okay, something else to think about. We don't think about this a lot in our field, but how often is the tool updated? If it's being updated every quarter, that may mean that there are a lot of bug fixes. Now, that may be good, that may be bad. I'm not saying it's either. I'm just pointing it out. There may be a lot of bug fixes. And for your workflow, it may be too disruptive to be updating every quarter. So that may be too many bug fixes for you. That may just be too much for you. You need more stability than that. However, if the company is only updating the product every 18 to 24 months, given that a lifetime in the high-tech industry at least is about 18 months, that may not be enough. You may need updates that happen more often than that, especially if you are looking at your roadmap and you're going, yeah, in 2 years, we've got to be doing X, Y, and Z. A product that's only updating every 18 to 24 months, if they don't have that thing you need in development right now, it could be 2 years before you, actually it could be 3 years before you get it. And that may not fit with you. Are they updating it annually? But there aren't a lot of big changes when they do the annual. There was a vendor that does not exist any longer out there that if you've been in our field for any length of time, you might remember that absolutely would update. They would send an update out once a year. And when you looked at the update, sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes it seemed the update was a couple of bug fixes they should have fixed right away, and then they moved a couple of menu items around. And they went, yes, it's a dot, you know, a 7.0 or a 5.0 or whatever it was release. And you'd sit there and you'd go, no, it's not. You fixed some bugs that should have been fixed anyway, and you moved a couple of menu items around. Can you see how that's not a full release? But, yeah. Is the tool extendable? Now, if you're doing a shrink wrap product, this may not be an issue for you. If you're doing the middle or enterprise level, an SDK, software development kit, may actually be really important for you because you may need to be integrating this product into other things or customizing it. And it would be good to know if there is, in fact, a development kit available for that. And then, can you talk to current users? Now, when you ask the vendor if you can, they'll probably give you a list of people that they know for a fact are very, very happy, because they're not going to give you a list of people they know for a fact are very, very unhappy. That would not help their sale. So they should be able to give you a list of people who are very, very happy, and you absolutely should talk to them. But you should also use lists like TechWhirler or HAT or Framers or any other lists to see if you can find just regular people. Now, people who are really unhappy will want to share with you every little reason why they're really unhappy. And having worked for 2 vendors, I can tell you sometimes the reason that people are very, very unhappy is they bought the tool and they want to use it like a hammer when in fact it's a dishwasher. And they're really frustrated because the dishwasher is not hammering nails terribly well. So use your common sense here. If what they're describing is something that why on earth anybody would buy that product, it would be like buying InDesign and then being really mad because it doesn't do online help. I can't do online help with InDesign. Right, because it's not meant for that. So use your common sense there. Vincent, may I have another slide, please? And then last note, do not be afraid to tell the salespeople that you are dealing with what your problems are, including any internal business challenges you're having, because they may have helped solve this before. This is less the case with shrink wrap, but the more you go up that ladder, the more likely it is they have helped solve these problems before, because there is a long sales time for the very large products, sometimes several years, and the salesperson works the whole thing. So they're pretty adept at solving those problems. So don't be afraid to tell them, you know, that yes, we know we need to do this. My manager knows we need to do this, but we get up into the VP level and we're having a problem there. For some reason, the business case that we're putting together isn't working. Can you help us re-pitch that? Have you solved this problem before? And they may have, and they may be able to give you some help in figuring out how to solve it for you. Also, once you've defined your business case, your problems, all of that, it's yours. Don't let the salesperson tell you those really aren't your problems. Your problems are these other things. Be open to additional problems they may know about because they've helped other companies solve those. So be open to that. But if the salesperson takes your list and looks at it and goes, no, that's not really your problems. Let me tell you what your problems are. Here, I've got it in my briefcase. Let me show you what your problems are. You're dealing with the wrong person. They're not listening to you. They're not listening to you. And you need to be working with a salesperson who is in fact listening to you, who is taking very good care to attend to what your problem problems are because they want this dating thing to go well. They're interested in getting married. Don't be scared to ask vendors to show you clear ways to solve your business problems. It can be very intimidating if the salesperson is talking very fast and flying around the product when they're doing a demo for you. It can be very intimidating to get them to stop. But put your feet down. It's your demo. They've done it. They're doing it just for you. You should get out of it what it is you want to see. And if they seem to be going too fast and aren't explaining themselves or are showing you ways to solve what seems to be other people's problems but certainly weren't problems you identified, don't be afraid to put your foot down and say, no, stop it. I need you to show me what I need you to show me. That's all very nice. I'm sure somebody likes that, but I need you to show me what I've identified on our list. Let's go back to our list, shall we? I'm on page 2, at the top of the page. If the vendor isn't doing this stuff, you got the wrong vendor. Again, you're dating. What on earth makes you think it's going to be different once you get married? And I'm talking as somebody who's been married 3 times. What on earth makes you think it's going to be different once you get married? Evaluating the new tools is really a partnership. When you're working with a vendor, with a salesperson who gets what you're trying to do, who is committed to helping you get it done in the best way possible, it really is a partnership. And it will go really, really well. So I don't want you guys to all think that the salespeople are all horrible. They're not. There are some really, really good ones out there. Vince, can I see the last slide, please? Or the next slide, please. Okay. We are at 9 minutes till. Do we have any questions? We've got several people who've been tweeting live as we go. And I'm just like, wow, way to go. So, do we have any questions? By the way, I know some of you sent me some emails. I, by and large, answered your emails this morning. There are a couple of you I've asked to follow up with me on the phone later next week when I'm back in my own office because the problem you're trying to solve is very large and certainly out of the scope of this. So, anybody have any fast horror story they want to share? Because, you know, we always love sharing horror stories. Anybody have, don't name names, I don't want to know the name of the vendor, but anybody struggling with vendors, I'm just curious. Please don't name names. I'm looking at the chat window, at the question window, looking at the question window, looking at the question window. So I'm going to sing now. Do, 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 do. All right, I am not seeing any questions. Vincent, do you want to jump in here? Is there anything I'm missing?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So I kind of raced through it a little bit so that you guys would make sure we got done on time. We've got 5 minutes. You guys all saw my email at the very beginning. And if you don't, it's really easy. It's Sharon at SharonBurton.com. If you have questions later, you know, tomorrow, later, whatever. Vincent, I did get a question asking if the slides for part 2 had been sent out. And there's Anne-Marie right now.
They were not sent out, but they are on our website. Okay.
Could you maybe send a link to everybody, letting us know?
I sure can. Okay.
So that's where the slides will be at, is you're going to be getting a link for where the slides are. You guys can get the slides. We have somebody up who is sharing that they ended up with a vendor that gave us so many gotchas in post-processing and irreversible mistakes. Oh, no. So this is why I don't want to mention names, because I don't want to pick on specifics. Yeah. So she's saying that there's all kinds of massive issues. I'm dying to know the vendor, but I do not want to know the vendor in this public venue. Maybe offline we could chat about this, just because I like to know this stuff. But yeah, I talked to a guy last week who's interested in bringing me in. They've invested a significant amount of money, effort, time, etc. in a tool, with a vendor to solve some problems. Those problems are still valid to be solved, and they are not getting the attention from the vendor that they need to have. They said it seems as though that the vendor has a list of customers they'll deal with after the sale, and they can't seem to get on that list. And they're a fairly large company. And that just breaks my heart, because there are so many good vendors vendors out there with really smart people who will in fact help and will do a good job. And it's just really frustrating when I hear from people that they've dealt with a vendor who, for whatever reason, maybe it was a bad salesperson, whatever reason, wound up selling them a bill of goods, and the tool is not. And how do you go back to your management? After you've asked to spend all this money, you've gone through all of this effort, you've worked with the darn thing for maybe a year or two, and it's just simply not meeting your needs, and it's not getting any better. How do you go back to your management and go, well, that money I asked us to spend because I said it was going to really help us? Well, not so much, really. I'd like us to spend more money on something else, which I'm sure is going to help us and make it all better. That's a really uncomfortable place. So I'm trying to give you guys some of the tools that you'll need to not be there, because that's not a fun place to be. All right, I have 4 minutes till the top of the hour. I want to thank you guys so much. I know a certain percentage of you have been with me from the beginning, and I want to thank you so much. I'm hoping that you got something valuable out of the entire series. Again, I apologize for our slightly challenging technical issues when we got started, and I apologize for the late start, but I hope that you got something of value for yourself today, and that you've at least got some good things to think about. You will be getting a link to the slides so that you can get the slides. Please keep in mind that this is, of course, my own copyrighted stuff, so it would be nice if you didn't hit the STC circuit giving these presentations as though it's your own. That would be nice. I would appreciate that. But feel free to, use this content to think about stuff, to focus on your own stuff. And I'd like to give a big shout out to DCL. Thank you for doing this webinar series. I've thought it rocked. I've certainly had a great time, and I think it's provided a lot of value for you guys. And I think that there's a lot more webinars going on, and I'm going to hand this over to Vincent and let him tell you about that.
All right, thank you, and it's always a pleasure to have you, Sharon.
You're really quiet, Vincent.
Oh gosh.
Really quiet. There you go. That's better.
So coming up, we have in March, actually, we'll be sending out an email blast. So if you subscribe on our website, we will be getting that email blast every month. We have a webinar schedule that goes out. We also have a DCL Learning Series LinkedIn group. If you wanted to come and ask some questions there, or if you wanted to post some topics that you might be interested in attending later on in the next few months. So you can connect us with us there, or you can get us on Twitter, DC Laboratory, or of course you can email me. My email address is bdonadio@dclab.com for any further information regarding any webinars. And that's about it.
And that does it, guys. That does it. I want you to go have a wonderful day. Go do something amazing. Make a difference somewhere. And I'll hopefully see you at various shows, etc. So thank you, guys. And